Webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another CW webinar. I am Wanderson, and me and my colleague are here to discuss CW's views on the pressing topic, carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology in the cement industry. For today's presentation, I would like to introduce myself, Wanderson Teixeira, business analyst at CW Group, based in Portugal, as well as Prashant Singh, our director at CW Group, based in our Indian office. On this page, you can find our contact details, so please feel free to reach out in case you have any questions or would like to get in touch with us to discuss CW services. On today's agenda, we will start with a brief introduction of our company, what it is that we do, and how we can help in making informed decisions, as well as a brief overview of the macroeconomic prospect globally. And of course, we are here preparing an overview of the carbon capture, storage, and use technology, starting with an analysis of electricity and fuel prices, going forward to the carbon emissions in the cement industry, and finalizing with the overview of the adoption of carbon capture technologies and its costs within the cement industry, so we can leave you with our closing remarks. So to start off, I'm going to ask you to be a little bit patient while I present a little bit of overview of our company. So CW Group is presented across three distinct verticals. We have advisory, research, and media. Under the advisory branch, CW works with major global consultants and leading institutions, including the World Bank, IFC, and other several foreign wealth funds and consulting projects. We provide consulting and advisory expertise on a diverse product portfolio. And during the past couple of months, years in this case, we have helped multiple industry participants in their decision-making process. This has included projects like a circular economy potential assessment across industries in Africa, where we provided a quantification of potential circular economy opportunity for around 20 markets, therefore naming initiatives, policies, and regulations that could support circular economy as well as potential reduction of CO2 emissions. We also have worked with on a West African cement market assessment in collaboration with an important leading institution. Under the research branch, CW focuses on producing syndicated reports. Those reports, they cover areas like cement, building materials, coal, pet coke, bulk shipping, and also paper and pulp. We are well known for our studies on cement demand globally, as well as detailed industry and country reports. We also have provided historical as well forecasts for markets in a variety of products. This includes our benchmarking products, the volume forecast report, trade prices report, the white cement report, and other many more reports. And we also provide commodity price assessments for both cement and clinker. Now, last but not least, we have the media umbrella, in which by subscribing, we provide online access to our vast database. We also provide newsletters focused on cement, building materials, patch coke, bulk shipping, and also paper and pulp with the latest industry news. And we have returned to host our in-person meetings, and our next conference called CW Cement and Solid Fuel Summit 2022 in the Middle East and Africa is scheduled to happen in November in Dubai, as well as other conferences that we have scheduled for the third quarter of the year. So for more details on these events, please don't hesitate to contact us so we can help you with this. So to start with our presentation, I'll go over the global economic outlook for 2022. According to IMF's July update, the global economic growth is estimated at 3.2%, down 0.4% from the April forecast. This is due to several factors, including the higher than ever inflation across the globe, as well as the continued negative spillovers from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In the US, reduced household purchase power and also a stricter monetary policy have been driven down the revision of 1.4%, while in China, we are seeing new lockdowns and the deepening of the real estate crisis, also leading to a downward revision of 1.1%. This is resulting in major global spillovers. In Europe, the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict continues to have a negative impact on major economies, which is summing up to a tighter monetary policy, therefore leading to an even more negative economic outlook. The euro area GDP is expected to see an increase of 2.6% this year, which is down from the growth of 5.4% in 2021. And Russia, given the scenario as of today, is expected to see its economy decline 6% this year to further decline 3.5% next year. In the case of the emerging market and developing economies, we have negative revisions to growth this year, next year, reflected mainly by the sharp slowdown in China's recovery and moderation in India's. Additionally, we have the IMF's October update coming up very soon, which is already expected to downgrade once again the global economic outlook, given the current macroeconomic scenario that we are in today. Meanwhile, we have the World Bank recently reporting that spillovers from the Russia-Ukraine conflict are set to sharply hasten the deceleration of the global economic activity, which, according to them, is not expected to slow down to 2.9% in 2022 and 3% in 2023. The conflict is leading to high commodity prices, adding to supply disruptions, increasing food insecurity and poverty, exacerbating inflation, and contributing to a tighter financial conditions, therefore increasing policy uncertainty. Growth in the emerging market and developing economies, according to the World Bank, this year has also been downgraded to 3.4%, as negative spillovers from the conflict more than offset any near-term boost to some commodity exporters from higher energy prices. What we have with those economic outlooks concluding is that the global economic prospect for this year remains extremely gloomy as the world continues to witness the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the slowdown of major economies, including the US, China, and India. In our next slide, we have prepared a couple of notable points that need to be taken into consideration before we jump into the analysis of the adoption of CCUS technology in the cement industry, given the impact that these economic sanctions adopted by major economies on Russia and its energy sector. We see Russia facing a challenging scenario due to the West's sanctions, which are already damaging the Russian economy and are expected to further damage for the next decade. Beyond the restriction themselves, which right now covers about a quarter of imports and exports, the country now is facing a blockade and that has been affected practically all forms of transport, therefore further cutting off the country's economy. When it comes to oil output, we also expect a reduction, which is threatening the government goals to expand the domestic gas supply, given all of the sanctions that are happening. And these are actually the latest reports that were released by the government about the prospects for the Russia economy. We have, for example, more recently, at the end of July, the European Union renewed economic sanctions on Russia for another 6 months, at least until January 31st of 2023. We also have the West moving toward an embargo of imports of mineral resources from Russia. Uh, and also by the end of 2022, we have the US and most of European countries likely stopping buying Russian oil and coal. So the dependence on the Russian gas imports is also gradually decreasing as we see. Of course, with this conflict and the sanctions, we have to also think about the consequence that this is having on European countries, given that Europe is highly dependent on Russian gas. We have prices that have surged after Russia halted gas flow via its major pipeline. And with that, we have governments that are pushing for a multi-billion euro package to prevent a disaster in their economies. So we have now recently seen that Gazprom has stopped pumping gas via Nord Stream 1. And with that, prices will go even higher. And a result of that is that many European power distributors, including the Finnish Fortum, the Swedish Expo, the British Centrica, they have already collapsed, and we have other major generators that could be at risk, hit by the caps that limit prices rise can pass to consumers or cut out by handling bats with gas prices now for 400% higher than what we had a year ago. So with all of that, we also have the consequences for the cement production. The cost of energy, especially in Europe, has increased by 3 to 4 times what it was in 2021. So this, of course, has forced cement producers to focus on just being operationally and financially viable, leaving little or even no room for strategic investments. And this, in this case, in our analysis, includes the carbon capture, which is expected to, let's put it like that, be left aside, at least in the short to medium term. While we have cement companies, they are aware that this is a strategical necessity. The current macroeconomic environment, in which we have higher inflation and additional transportation costs, will of course push this decision into the coming years. Now, of course, we also have to analyze inflation rates. And in terms of inflation, we are seeing a surge globally given the current geopolitical scenario. We have a higher than expected inflation worldwide, especially in the US and also in major European economies, driven by energy, food, and many other commodity prices increasing, which is triggering tighter financial conditions. For example, in the US, inflation rates, they reached around 9% in July uh, uh, from a 9.1% hit in June. We have also Europe, where inflation rates were also high in July, with the European Union seeing rates of 9.8%. We have extreme cases like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, where countries have seen the highest rate in the month of above 20%. So it's a very risky scenario as of today. And according to the IMF, with increasing prices continuing to squeeze living standards worldwide, taming inflation should be the first priority for policymakers as of today. Tighter monetary policies will inevitably have real economic costs, but delaying them will only exacerbate rates for inflation. So we see that targeted fiscal support can help relieve the impact of the most vulnerable, but with government budgets stretched not only by the pandemic, but also by the consequence of it, we have the need of a disinflationary overall macroeconomic policy. So these policies will need to be offset by increased taxes or even lower government spending. So when we start talking about the CCUS technology analysis, we of course have to give you an overview of the current energy prices evolution so we can better understand its impact on not only production costs but also transportation costs. As you can see here in our slide, we have bunker fuel, natural gas, and coal prices, and also electricity prices in Europe. In terms of the bunker fuel, as of September 6th, bunker fuel prices have decreased by around 7% in the Mediterranean Basin on a monthly basis, while during the same period, prices have dropped by 9% in the Persian Gulf. And when we look at Northern Europe, where we have select ports, Rotterdam, Antwerp, and Amsterdam, we have prices increasing by around 0.5% during the month. We also have sanctions, as I mentioned before, that were applied to Russia, have deeply impacting the coal and natural gas trade, as Russia is one of the major providers of commodities to European and Asian countries. As a result of that, we have Newcastle coal futures skyrocketing to a new record high of around $400 per ton on September 6th. This has been supported by the continued robust demand and also the persistent supply disruptions that were exacerbated by the conflict in Eastern Europe. However, we have crude oil prices that are starting to decline as China's extension of the lockdown measures to curb new COVID-19 spread has also exacerbated concerns that a slowdown in economic activity globally could hit fuel demand. For example, yesterday, the Brent crude fell as low as $88 a barrel, which is 4.6, almost 5% drop. And this was like the first time that the Brent crude has dropped below $9 per barrel since February. We also have the WTI falling at 5.2% to around $82 per barrel, being its lowest price point since January as well. And these declines, they have come only days after the OPEC Plus decisions to cut crude supply to ramp up prices. Defying calls from Western governments battling to curb inflation, also in the face of this global energy crisis. We also have the Nord Stream pipeline closure announcement that has sent prices for gas on the benchmark Dutch up 32% as of September 6th to more than 280 euros per megawatt hour. And of course, when it comes to electricity prices in Europe, we are seeing skyrocketing prices for a couple of months now, and we see that the European Union is on a course to impose historic interventions in the energy market to contain the soaring prices. This including considering levying excess profits and gas prices cap. So for instance, we have Germany announcing a $65 billion plan to combat rising energy prices. So this scenario, especially for European producers, it's very challenging and also affects the adoption of these new technologies as well. So to continue with our presentation, I would like to pass to my colleague so he can present you the CCUS technology analysis. I would like to thank you so much, and there you go, Prashant.
Thank you, Vanderson, and thank you all for joining us. So what I would like to do is to share with you a quick insight into how carbon capture has the possibility to transform the long-term viability of the global cement industry. So what you see on the slide today are the 5 main carbon capture and utilization and storage technologies that are currently available for retrofitting at cement plants. And while all of these technologies have their pros and cons, some are more capital intensive, some are more resource intensive, some require more space allocation, and quite frankly, some have had more projects, pilot projects than others. And it's important to understand that most cement plants globally have already adopted production efficiency measures to minimize costs, which opens the door for the next stage of technological advancement in terms of reducing the magnitude of costs, which is through carbon capture and utilization. And while some of these technologies have been in the development stage for almost a decade or more, only recently they are graduating from small-scale prototypes to industrial-scale plants. And currently, most of this is happening in Europe, which is basically a test basin for these technologies. And if it is successful there, then it's usually will be adopted in North America. And of course, the Chinese have implemented very strict environmental conditions. So the next major market where we will see significant use of these technologies is in China. A key factor in the technological development is the long lead time, the extensive financial investment required, but most importantly is the availability of strong regulation and a financial framework that promotes this effectively. Even in Europe, this does not exist currently. It exists in patches, predominantly in Northern Europe, especially in Sweden and Norway, while in Germany, while there is a significant support for this technology, there are critical questions such as underground storage, which have not been addressed. So what we believe is that by 2027, there will be another few more technologies in Europe that will be under pilot stage, and those will mature enough that they will be able to be scaled up to an industrial stage by 2030, where they will be able to be implemented across the continent. Now, there are also challenges as to how this carbon is transported. Currently, in Europe, it's a monopoly by Sweden and Norway, and this highlights only just one of the multiple challenges that this technology is facing towards widespread adoption globally. On the next slide, what we see is that the cement industry, and those of you who are associated with it are already aware, that it's responsible almost a quarter of all industrial emissions. Now, in terms of the cost of emissions per kilogram of CO2 per revenue dollar, as you see on the right, the cement industry is far, far higher than any other of the other more polluting industries. Now, about 2/3 of those emissions within the cement industry occur from the calcination process, where the chemical reaction that occurs when raw materials, including limestone, are exposed to high temperatures. So the ideal technological focus has been on sort of how to utilize this stage to reduce the carbon emissions. Now, there are a couple of different technologies, such as post-combustion amine technology, which will take advantage of steam generation and is perceived as a financially viable and safe option. There's also cold amine technology, where ammonia is involved, and this, in initial stages, seems to be a theoretically better option, where yields are above 90%, but these are all currently still being evaluated. And here on this slide, what we have endeavored to do is to give you a matrix in terms of the different technologies and summarize the potential and the challenges that they face. As you can see, the most promising technology that holds, at least at present, the greatest potential is the monoethylamine MEA chemical absorption process, and followed by the chilled ammonia process. Now, does that mean that they are the most effective or efficient? They have been the most that have been actually had pilot projects. Oxy-fuels have not been, combustion has not been actually done. And the other projects, as you can see, suffer significant issues in terms of the degree of retrofitability. And that is a significant challenge for the adoption of these technologies, that if they require significant retrofitting in terms of equipment, in terms of space, then the greater the likelihood that they will not be mass adopted, even if they provide longer term savings. So this is something that needs to be borne out in more pilot, smaller projects to see and pinpoint exactly where the challenges lie, and then weed out those technologies so that we can focus the scarce funds available on mass adoption of whatever technology is viable. Now, on the next slide, as you see, cement production has a very, very wide range of carbon capture costs. Most costs, however, in recent years are between $180 to $120 per ton for most cement plants. But that is clearly prohibitive for mass adoption, especially in major markets outside of Europe and North America. And even in those markets where the financial investment may not be as big an issue as it is in other regions, for example, a lack of regulatory clarity, or frankly, actually the absence of focused legislation on important aspects, including transportation, including underground storage, and the further use or application of the stored carbon dioxide remains a major point of contention. However, there are some technologies, including one that I would like to highlight by Carbon Clean, among many others, that has the potential to change this prohibitive cost dynamic. Through Carbon Clean, through its proprietary technology process, has shown it can reduce effectively the cost of carbon capture from $80 to $120, which is sort of the range, to less than $30 per ton, making it much, much more affordable for cement plants globally. Still, significant effort has to be done, or work has to be done, to coax cement producers around the world to view this technology as an essential requirement in their strategic plans going forward. For example, all brownfield and greenfield investments should theoretically have allocations for funds or space and personnel so that they can be absorbed in the planning process. It is far more difficult to retrofit a cement plant if this has not been considered in their planning because of the space and dimensions required, especially near the kiln. So this is an important aspect that needs to be taken into consideration in all greenfield investments going forward, that if in a future date there is retrofitting, that has to already be taken into account for. And yes, this will translate into a higher per unit cost, and industry will complain that consumers will not want to pay for this, but then they will have to adapt, because purely for the reason that there is actually simply no other viable alternative to control the emissions in the next few decades if we do not implement this technology globally. And for those who are in Europe and those who are in Asia can already see carbon, the fact of climate change. Europe has not seen a drought this bad since 1540. And in Asia, Asia was reeling with a heat wave. China is still reeling with a heat wave. Pakistan is underwater. So the climate change is no more a theoretical concept. It is happening. It is affecting hundreds of millions of people. And given that this industry is a major contributor, it leaves no recourse before it is actually legally mandated to do so. So it is in the inherent interest of companies to sort of incorporate this already in their planning rather than be forced into it when they are not sort of financially prepared. So that is sort of this quick glimpse into this technology, and we would be happy to have detailed discussions regarding this later on. So, and for our closing remarks, and to sum up where we are right now. So the economic growth continues to be impacted by geopolitical events and COVID-19 restrictions. What basically we are referring to is sort of what is happening in Ukraine, Russia, between Russia and Ukraine. We're also trying to also include the potential impact of maybe the revival of the Iranian nuclear deal and the sustained nose COVID policy that China is enforcing. Last week, it has basically placed 300 million people in lockdown, which has significant financial implications for the Chinese economy, and therefore also has implications for global trade because so much of the trade flows through Chinese ports. And therefore, inflation is expected to stay at levels that are far beyond what we have expected, and this will dent economic growth prospects in the short to medium term. And possibly for lower middle income companies, a longer term, because it will greatly affect their ability to raise hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. Sustained high levels of energy and fuel costs are pressurizing operational viability of cement plants as we speak. Many are forced to close kilns, and this is not just for cement plants. Steel companies are forced that are focused on electric arc furnaces are forced to turn those furnaces off because it is just not viable under the economic the cost of energy to sustain production at those levels. But as we have seen, recent technological innovations show that there is a possibility of reducing the cost, effective costs, to $30 per ton from this by large-scale adoption, commercial adoption of this technology. Now, carbon clean technology that I gave an example is just one. There are multiple others, but those are just examples that there is significant innovation happening, and it depends upon the company, its long-term outlook as to which technology they would like to adopt and implement. And last but not least, the critical importance of established regulatory and financial frameworks is essential for this adoption. And I would like to reiterate, this should not just be on a national basis or a regional basis. This needs to be on a global basis because cement is a global industry and it needs to be implementable across regions. And that is the last point that I would like to leave you with. I thank you all for having stayed with us for the duration of this discussion. And please do get in touch with us to discuss more details about this and any other topics. Thank you so much and have a great day.